Okay, this is another fun project to do, and you may already know that you've watched the other video, and we are going to make Christmas pins for the teachers. And I start by rolling out some clay, and notice I'm using two rulers and the roller there. I have a canvas underneath. Remember the canvas so the clay does not stick to the table. It sticks to the roller sometimes too, so you just kind of have to be careful with that. If the roller gets too gummy, you can kind of clean it off, not with water, but just like scrape it off. And look at the thickness of the ruler. That's about 1/8 of an inch, and that's what I'm using. So I'm pushing the roller down to the ruler so I get a nice even thickness on the slab. Sometimes I've noticed some people will have the two rulers, but they don't push the roller all the way down to the rulers, and they get one that's uneven. So that's the reason why we use the two rulers, to make sure that our slabs are nice and even. I like to use like a knife to cut out this clay. I think it does a pretty good job. You could use a toothpick or a paper clip or something like that, but I don't think it does as good of a job. I think a knife is better in that case right there. So what I'm doing is I'm just cutting out the shape that I want to use. This is the basic, the main shape. Now remember, we want to make this look sculptural. We don't want to make it look like a slab. So notice right here that I'm like cleaning up the edges and curving them down so it doesn't look so flat. It's curved down. And I'm going to add a lot more to this, but I do want to start cleaning up as we go. Now my clay here is pretty plastic. It's a little bit on the dry side, just a little bit, but still very easy to connect things to it. It's not difficult to do. Usually I would tell you to slip and score, and if your clay were dry, for sure, or drier, I would say for sure slip and score. In this case here, sometimes what I'll do, if it's plastic enough, it's moist enough, then what I'll do is just blend it together, and usually that's enough to keep it from falling apart. So notice here I'm making a Christmas tree, and I'm putting the little Christmas tree trunk on there. And I put it on, I'm going to push it in really firmly, and then I'm going to take the knife and I'm just going to kind of blend it in the back. It doesn't matter what the back looks like, so if you do this, it's not a big deal. I blend it, push it down really good. If it is a little dry, take a little dot of slip and you can put that on there. Or what I like to do, sometimes I like to spray water on it, and that will help. Because it's really still very plastic, you don't have to worry about it not sticking very well. And if you push it down nice and firmly, you should be fine. And you have to just, it just depends. You have to kind of look at the condition of your clay and then make a decision on what you need to do to make a decision on what you need to do to stick two pieces together. And that will help you decide how you should do it. Now, you see that I'm making the Christmas tree here, and I want to put a star on the top of the Christmas tree. Look how I'm trying to make it like expressive. I want a Christmas tree that's interesting to look at, not one that is just a very basic triangle. And I do have some students that just make a triangle and generally don't even do anything other than that, and they just want to paint everything on there. And it's fine to paint some things on your sculptures, but you're supposed to make it like a relief sculpture. So you should be, adding things to it, making different levels, curving it. Also remember not to make it look just like a slab. I don't want it to look like a slab. So make sure that you're doing something with the edges so you don't have like a hard edge. And you saw before I was just using my fingers to smooth it. And you can do that. I would say the most tools that I use on this, generally just the knife and my hands. Occasionally I'll use something else, but this is really all you need. And I've got some pretty fat fingers, so if I can do it, I'm sure that you can do it. Okay? So I'm going to continue here and smooth, and I'm going to add that star here in a second. So you can see here, I want to get these a little bit wet to make sure that they attach better. And this will help. They're still plastic, so I'm not too worried about that, but just a little bit of water will do a pretty good job. You could add slip to it, but it'll get a little bit messy. I think a little bit of water for these pins probably better. And notice that I'm really pressing this into the other clay. And I'm going to lift it up and make sure that I blend these parts together. Remember, it doesn't matter what the back looks like, not a big deal. So I'm going to blend those together and make sure that they're securely connected. Some people have theirs fall off in the kill, and we don't want that to happen to yours. So make sure that it's connected well. I want to smooth the edges and clean it up. And remember, my main smoothing tool right now is still just my fingers, and that works really well, or I would use something else. Now I want to add some decoration to this. I have what's called, really I call 3 different levels, where I have the trunk, and then on top of that is the tree, and then on top of that is the star. And I want to add a little bit more to it to make it a little bit more sculptural. Look how I'm also working on the edges to make them not look like a slab. Try to make them look more three-dimensional. This is still rather flat, and some of you will have some that are even more three-dimensional than that. You can build up on the tree. You can make it, bigger in the middle or something like that. This one's going to just be fairly flat, but it will be curved edges and cleaned up. But I was thinking that I might want to add a little bit of decoration, some ornaments of some sort. So I'm going to cut some little bitty like ropes that I could put on the tree here, and I just use my knife and the clay that I already made. And you'll notice the clay that I made, I still have plenty left, and I started with a little bitty piece. Like I started with a piece like the size of a golf ball, and I have a ton left, and it's kind of drying out right now. I think I'm going to use my ruler to get a better, straighter edge. My first one was fine, but I want to make it a little bit nicer. So I'm just going to use the ruler, lay that out, and cut along the ruler, and I've got a nice edge there. Notice I'm laying these on here without sticking them on. And sometimes I do that, and it works out well. In this case right here, I probably should have just stuck them on there, sprayed it with some water, and stuck them on, but I wasn't sure what I wanted it to look like. So I kind of just laid them there. To see if I can kind of get the look I want, to make sure it's right. Sometimes if you stick them on there and then you don't like it, then it's a little bit harder getting it off. But as you cut these on here, because it's still pretty plastic, just getting these off to attach them properly, you can kind of tear them up. So just be aware of that. So I'm having a hard time getting these off, and I'm just beating them up a bit doing that. So I'm going to spray it down with water, and remember I told you I do that so that they stick better, and I press them in there really nicely and really firmly when I do that. And they stick really well if your clay is still plastic. If your clay is dry, if it's like a dry leather hard, this is not going to work so well. So just be careful. It's all about the condition of your clay, and remember that's all the time. That's what it's about, the condition of your clay. It'll be either easier or harder depending on what condition your clay is in. Okay, so here I decided to turn it over to see if I can get a better side to work with there, and that's much better. Just going to press that in firmly. Notice I let it go over the edge, like around the tree, and that creates a little interest to it. And I'll press that in there. And make sure that it's on there nice and firmly. If I want to change the shape, now's the time to do it. If I'm okay with that, I can just press it in. And remember to smooth them up. Take your time with these. Take 15 or 20 minutes to make a pin. Don't try to make it just in a few minutes. Now this is another trick that has helped out sometimes. I'll take a firm brush with pretty firm bristles, medium to firm bristles, and just a little bit of water, and I'll brush this over some of these areas. It'll smooth it off and kind of clean off the edges a little bit, and kind of just like softens the edges. And I think it does a pretty good job, and you'll see as I do this that it just cleans it up a bit. Usually I tell students don't smooth with water. It's not because it'll bring up the grog, but what I'm trying to do here is just to knock off the rough edges and to clean that up. I'm not really trying to, you know, to burnish this or anything. I'm just trying to clean up the edges, and this will help quite a bit, and it'll make it nice and smooth. Now it might bring up some of the grog, just be aware, but if you're okay with that, then you'll be fine here. And you may notice that when I show you a close-up of this that you might be able to see a little bit of the grog, but I'm not too worried about it. I think it will be fine. This pin is a little bit on the big side. I'm a little bit worried about that. It probably will be fine, but I'd say this is the maximum size. Okay, there's the bell for the next hour, so I'm gonna stop here and finish this up, and I'll show you a picture of what it looks like done. Okay, here it is done, and notice I got a little box, and I'm going to stick it in the little box just to make sure that it's safe, because they will get broken really easily. So maybe put them in the box. You can see a little bit of the grog there too, but I'm going to let it dry, and then we will get those painted up after they're fired.